Hello YouTube, today we are talking sponge filters and if you need one for your aquarium. So do you need one for your aquarium? Absolutely not. You could have a hang on back filter, you could have a canister filter, you could have a sump, you can run no filter. There's a lot of people doing that, although I do not recommend it for beginners. So there's multiple types of sponge filters, right? You're just your standard sponge filter. There's Hamburg Matten filters. There are even sponges that you can use to replace the cartridge in your hang-on back, which I'm always going to recommend this over spending money on the manufacturer replacement cartridges, which are just asinine. They're so expensive these days. When you can just buy a little piece of sponge, cut it to what you need, and clean it and keep reusing it. And really the only thing you miss out is the minuscule amount of carbon that they put in those factory cartridges. So you're not missing anything really. So I personally keep sponge filters in every single tank I own, and there's many reasons for that. First being biological filtration. I don't think it can be beat. There's just so much surface area on these sponges for beneficial bacteria to grow that if you're overstocking your tank, or if you're growing out a lot of fry, things like that, it's really hard to beat a sponge filter. I mentioned growing out fry, excellent filtration for fry. Unlike a hang-on back or possible sump or canister, your fry are not gonna get sucked up. Now, if you are running those and you don't want them to get sucked up, you can actually put a sponge filter over your intake, another good use for sponges. This is also probably the most cost-effective way to filter an aquarium, especially when you've got about 50 like I do. Nothing can beat the cost of a sponge filter. The other nice thing about these is that they're very low maintenance, very easy to clean, especially this brand, which is the Co-op brand, which I will go over later. We'll touch base on maintenance a little later, but very easy to maintain. Another benefit of the sponge filter is gonna be aeration. If you're already running an air stone, why not just throw in a sponge filter? I realize it takes up room, and now we're starting to get into the cons of sponge filter, and that is they do have to be inside your aquarium, unlike a hang-on back, canister, or sump, which is on the outside. But if you don't have an air stone in your aquarium, probably a good idea to pick one up just for oxygenation levels, surface agitation, things like this are very important. Obviously, you need surface agitation for the exchange of gases, so very important. Now, I understand there are some cons when it comes to sponge filters, and what's one of them? The big one, right? You have to put it in your aquarium. It's not the most attractive thing to look at, but if you're being strategic, you can hide these behind rocks, wood. I usually stick mine in a corner and then put plants around it so it hides it in the plants, and that usually works well for me. Now, the mechanical filtration can be a little limited on these guys depending on what type you get. If you see this one, the reason I don't like this one is it's very, where am I at here? Here I am. They're very dense. So as soon as this outer layer gets caked, the inner layer is pretty much worthless when it comes to mechanical filtration. It's not gonna do anything. This is going to capture very little debris. Whereas if you look at this one here, much more porous, wide open. This one will collect infinitely more debris than your standard sponge filter. Now, normally I would say maintenance and cleaning would be a con, and it is when you talk about these ones here, where the air line goes in through the middle, so you pretty much have to pull this apart, take it out, and then remove your sponge filter to clean it however you clean your sponge filters. So now, why I say it's no longer a con is because these Aquarium Co-op sponges, it attaches on the outside. So now when it's sitting in your aquarium and it's time to clean, you can just reach in, pop the top off like that, leave that in your aquarium, and then usually you want to put like a bag around it, any like a Ziploc bag or a grocery bag, so when you move it, all the debris doesn't start floating around everywhere. But then you just take this out, clean it, put it right back in, pop the top back on, and you're good to go. It's way easier than trying to take this off, finagle it down in there. You know when this has been in your tank for a while, it's slimy, it's slippery. Putting it back on and taking it off can be kind of a pain. And is it the end of the world? No, but it's the little things that make life easier when it comes to your aquarium. And this definitely makes it easier. So another con about these sponge filters is that if you're running a lot of air through them, you get these big bubbles, they make a lot of noise, and you can hear it from a long ways away. And there's not a lot you can do about it with these types here. On some sponge filters, you can take off the inside and put in an air stone to make the bubbles smaller, but not with this. Not all sponge filters can do that. What's nice about these Co-op sponge filters, when you take this apart and you look in here, the holes are very, very small. So even when you run a lot of air through it, you just get a lot more small bubbles. It makes way less noise. and generally makes for a lot better aeration. Now, my biggest con with sponge filters has always been they don't create a lot of flow. And for me, flow is very important, especially in planted tanks. So I normally have to put like a power head or a hang-on back filter to get that additional flow I'm looking for. That is no longer the case if you go with the co-op sponge filter, because now they all include an easy flow kit, which creates a lot of flow. You'd be really surprised. It's basically just an uplift tube that comes to a 90-degree turn like this, and it basically turns your sponge filter into a Hamburg Matten filter, if you're familiar with those. So you just put one of these bad boys on there and you're gonna have so much flow, as you can see in the B-roll. This is in a 20 long with about a quarter of the air turned up, so it can go a lot more. So we haven't even gone over one of the biggest positives of having a sponge filter, and that is a power outage. If you were to pair this with a battery backup air pump, you would be able to run this in a power outage. You wouldn't lose any of your filtration. You'd still have your beneficial bacteria. And a lot of the air pumps with a backup battery can actually run for quite a long time. I know, like the co-op one, if I have a power outage, I actually turn it down as far as I can so it lasts the longest. So it never hurts to keep one of these hiding in your tank, running off a backup battery air pump for emergencies such as power outages. So there's my spiel on sponge filters, the pros and cons. Let me know what you guys think down below. Do you guys run sponge filters? I'd like to know what your favorite is. I've got links down below if you're interested in anything you've seen in this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one.